Greetings and welcome to EvolvingSeeds.com. We will be discussing the Activism University, more specifically the elementary, which is a thought, or what I call an informata, and it exists as an information thread. You simply start from the top and work your way down. We are at the elementary where it begins. Welcome, neophyte. The term neophyte means initiate or beginner. You don't necessarily have to be a beginner to learn from the elementary or the Activism website, and it is intended to be adaptable and adjustable and progressive in its analysis, and delivery. So it's grammar, logic, and rhetoric, or input, processing, and output, also known as the trivium. That is how we are attempting to deliver this information to the masses. Thank you, whomever you are, for walking on this path at whatever time you walk on it. If you have found this place, then you are seeking harmony, equity, justice, and the freedom of humanity's first ancestors. The information presented here has the ability to achieve that most glorious and honorable goal. Please be considerate of your thoughts and emotions while you create the action of furthering your development, understanding, and evolution. This informata, or vast information thread, includes original content by Evolving Seeds staff and associates, many other prominent activists, philosophers, scientists, poets, and the greatest minds in recorded history. This thread also includes video, audio, articles, downloads, links, and more. This is a train of thought. Evolving Seeds insists that you do your own research and due diligence. Be considerate of your mind. Move here at your own pace. As always, thank you for your consideration. The elementary is meant to be a very simple, very direct, very practical delivery of information that we were born either knowing or feeling that has been occulted and deliberately obfuscated, which means to render something unintelligent, even though it's very simple. It's some bullshit. Or you're making something that's true and simple and making it sound like bullshit. So for the neophyte to begin initiation, the lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding, a quote from the Kybalion. In addition, a quote from the Kybalion, the purpose of this work is not the enunciation of any special philosophy or doctrine, but rather is to give to the students a statement of truth that will serve to reconcile the many bits of occult knowledge that they may have acquired, but which are apparently opposed to each other, and which have often served to discourage and disgust the beginner in the study. Our intent is not to erect a new temple of knowledge, but rather to place in the hands of the student a master key with which they may open the many inner doors in the temple of mystery through the main portals they have already entered, the Kybalion. There's a link to a lesson plan below. Let's see what that is. I put a lot of this together, and it's been so long since I don't even know what's on some of it. Here, Egypt documentary, awesome. Ancient Kemet. When we're referring to those who established that knowledge, it would be the Cometians from Kemet. So this is what Evolving Seeds is about. Cutting through all of the static and finding out what history is true, and refining and defining what that history expressed itself as, not what we view it as in hindsight. So taking the terms and definitions for words that we use today that were created by them from how they intended it rather than how we want to perceive them, even when that takes some work. So, in the distant past, humans would flock to mysterious monuments to knowledge with no particular reason identified as the initial cause for the information migration itself. For many, that tradition has returned, revolved, and is repeating. This time, however, is unique in that the seeker does not have to physically leave their home, does not have to leave behind their loved ones, and does not have to risk life and limb to acquire any truth. This school of thought is not for the moral relativist. Let me say that again. This school of thought is not for the moral relativist who falsely believes, quote, there is no such thing as objective truth. Truth is subjective, or that truth is relative. The only way to move forward is to accept the truth that there is truth. This author likes to reply to the statement, quote, there is no such thing as objective truth with, quote, are you stating that as if it's objectively true? If you think about that for a moment, you can already see how it's problematic. But what do we mean by truth in the first place? The understanding of truth has been deliberately obfuscated by the ruling powers in order to cloud the mind. Empirical truth is simply that which has in fact happened and that which is in fact happening in the present. Nothing more, nothing less. Personal truth equates to perspective, opinion, viewpoint, etc., which are based on an individual's processing of external stimuli known as reality, the environment, or truth, which are then filtered through the measurable and immeasurable internal processes of the human body to become perspective, subjective experience, and internal reality. One must dispel notions of his truth, their truth, our truth, your truth, my truth, their truth. I think I said that one. There is no such thing. That is the path to indoctrination and to belief in that which does not exist. This also can lead one to not understand that which is empirically true and does exist. Or as Soren Kierkegaard said, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe that which isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe that which is true. As an exercise to stimulate the mind, and let us state that in the truest, most concise way out loud. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe that which has never happened or is not happening. The other is to refuse to believe that which has actually happened and or is actually happening. In this fashion, we can relate and restore our understanding of our relation to our particular being and this three-dimensional construct we call reality. Do not be deterred if you have been institutionalized by the false prophets of higher education or indoctrinated by the politics of the dominant social, cultural, technological, philosophical, or environmental institutions of your day. Do not be consumed by sorrow if you have been graded or rather degraded by these institutions or, quote, brought up in wrong thinking, felonious feeling, and incorrect behavior. Your nescience or nescience is redeemed by your desire to seek truth and understanding. Only those who refuse to accept truth and instead willfully choose to refuse and ignore the truth that they themselves recognize are doomed to the wasteland of ignorance or ignorance. The modern term for this is cognitive dissonance, which is, quote, the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as related to behavioral decisions and attitude change. That's the definition from the Oxford Dictionary. Evolving Seeds does not participate in the endless myths perpetuated by the schools erected by the status quo, such as the dualistic concept of smart and dumb, the implementation of tests, grades, scores, etc. Evolving Seeds submits to you that there are no such things as smart or dumb. There is only informed or uninformed, and by extension, correct or incorrect. On a short enough timeline, everyone is dumb. On a long enough timeline, everyone can be smart. If you only have 0.0003 seconds to input the question, process it, and output your answer, the term applies. If you have a lifetime to input the question, process it, and output your answer, then the latter adjective applies. Moving forward, if you have accepted the truth that there is truth and that you, yes, you, are capable of locating, comprehending, understanding, accepting, and integrating recognized truth for what it is, then you have already altered your perceptions of reality and begun your journey to self-mastery and harmony. If you are already familiar with this internal-external framework of consciousness, then skim ahead or allow your mind to guide you to some vital and relevant piece of information within this introduction. If you have never considered these topics or challenged your own, quote, worldview, then I suggest you strap yourself in. I do want to address the word information and why it is written with the hyphen in the middle between in and formation. And it's because the difference between data and information is, between data, truth, and information is that data is the individual components that make up or form the totality of a truth, while information is data that is in the right order to equal truth. Data, individual piece, in the right formation equals truth. Because data out of the right formation is bullshit. If I tell you that I turned off my light, sat down, took a shit, washed my hands, stood up, got some toilet paper, all of the components for that story are true. All of the data for that story is correct. None of it is false information. None of it is false, but it's not in the right formation. What makes data relevant is when it is in formation. So there are words that we see that actually induce and refine our understanding of how these words were actually meant and are actually or can actually be used. Okay. You will not be accredited with any awards or certificates at the end of many plastic manufactured hurdles. You will not receive a degree. You will not be elevated by some authority figure who says when you have achieved. This is the Fight Club EvolvingSeeds School of Hard Knocks in that, quote, you determine your own level of involvement. That's a quote from Tyler Durden, Fight Club, 1999. Style of enlightenment. You choose the volume of awareness and interconnectivity with yourself and your environment you can experience and emerge and grow with. Here you will gain a far better understanding of why the planet Earth is in the condition it is in and how human beings made it and created this way. You will clearly see how to improve the quality of your own life and the lives of the beings on this host planet without taking anything away from anyone except the thieves and criminals that tell us we cannot afford freedom. You will recognize in which ways we can and should compromise, and in which ways it is unacceptable, detrimental, or even impossible to compromise without catastrophic consequences. Too many people have taken the posture of either the ostrich or a bootlicking dog bent over in service of evil. Too many have accepted symbolic scraps as the best that can be achieved in a lifetime. But this too is false indoctrination, as we will prove to ourselves over and over again. Those that have not begun to investigate the higher truths that exist outside of their perceptions do not have the jurisdiction to profess their opinions about important world issues. Yet it has become prevalent for idiots. The word idiot means one who does not know themselves. Doesn't have anything to do with how smart they are. Yet it has become prevalent for idiots to speak about things they are not even mildly aware of to people who did not ask for their manipulated opinion. We must abandon those that do not share our desire to improve ourselves, our world, and the quality of life of all beings who depend on this host planet. In order to generate a better understanding of what on earth is happening, it is incumbent upon us to examine the nature and cause of our condition objectively. A decent way to accomplish this is to study and test the validity of our perceptions against that which is reasonable. We suggest that the student approach these topics as a third-party witness and not with either of any sides that may be discussed. So rather than identify with one group over here historically or currently, or one group over there historically or currently, rather we observe it objectively to the best of our abilities. You can also view these topics from the standpoint of a scientist studying the entirety of an organism, the organism being you, a civilization, or the environmental reality. You don't look at history and then pick sides of conflicts that are in history and then believe you're one side versus the other of a group of people who are the same people. You can study these topics from the perspective of a benevolent extraterrestrial species. If you have the prerequisite understanding of how morally and technologically advanced advanced civilizations would logically be. However, if you view these topics through the lens of, quote, that which you want to be true, which is a Travis Walton quote, to ease your terror and suffering, you will be blinded. If you are still here, then count yourself among the few who are rewarded simply by doing what they know is right. And more importantly, have the courage to continue and continuously evolve. If you have made it this far, then you probably have your ego in check, or are morbidly curious and traditionally open-minded, meaning you are able to hold a concept in your mind while you process it and can digest and comprehend the concept without accepting or denying it. To those who have abandoned their minds, bodies, spirits, and humanity to apathy and illusion, this would amount to a superpower. We have come full circle as together, we the chosen superheroes, embark on that great journey inward. We have migrated to the last place and the first place, the source and the center of all things. We are not here to mold you or educate you or drill discipline into you. We are established to facilitate that resource by which you will accomplish those noble and most human of goals yourself, and at 1/110th of the effort. We hope to act as the catalyst for the reemergence of the human being. We as the soil by which the nutrients of truth will nurture the seed to grow into the tree of life. Take these lessons at your own pace with the knowledge and caution that you will not be the same. And that is the point. Only through experience and with wisdom will we begin to reclaim our common heritage. Banish your notions of money, government, religion, entertainment, pleasure, the future, and the past, when or while you embark on this journey. Distractions are most certainly the problem, therefore unflinching focus is the solution. This is not exactly the kind of focus you use to study text, but rather the kind of focus you must cultivate to raise a child. The child essentially being ourselves. When we say raise a child, we are not referring to their age, size, or even overall growth and the energy and time that goes into that prospect. No, we mean to raise a child, raise in conscious awareness and conscious vibration. Check your ego at the door and let us begin. So we're seeing that there are levels to this, and you begin, you engage in experience, and then you end a level, and then you begin another level. So we were in the elementary, which we are still, but now we're in a section called What Woke Really Means. Woke has been bastardized, perverted, demonized, and co-opted and hijacked by the powers that be and thrust upon society in such a disgusting and monstrous way, when it just means not sleep. By every measure of any terminology for the word woke, coming from English, colloquial English, historical English, it just means that you're not asleep. What does sleep means? It means you're not in your normal conscious state of cognition. So being anti-woke just means you're anti-mental cognition. You're anti being aware of your environment. When you sleep, somebody comes in your house, you're less likely to be able to defend yourself than if you were wide awake. These are just common things that people have abandoned. But what woke really means, this is what it really means to be woke or enlightened. Mark Passio gives this presentation for the warriors only. This is the activist handbook as far as EvolvingSeeds.com is concerned. So this is presented by Mark Passio, another person who is featured throughout EvolvingSeeds.com, one of our affiliates, our honored affiliates, who graciously features us on the One Great Work Network, even though we are not technologically apt to keep participating in such a way that is intrinsic to that specific avenue or platform. But this video, Streetwise Spirituality, is one of his greater works that describes activism as spirituality, but that it is focused, it is prioritized, it is efficient, it is deliberate, it is intentional, and it is all encompassing. It is holistic. So activism, quote, spirituality is intrinsic and pivotal, integral to world issues, to environmental issues. And when I say environmental issues, I don't mean the earth or the universe. I mean inside you and outside as well. Any environment. Activism is life. So it goes on to talk about that. Then we refer to the Dogon people of Mali, which are the oldest living one of the oldest living types of human beings on the earth, and what their creation stories present, and how the Dogon people were able to track movement in the stars that was scientifically impossible for them to do at the time with whatever what we perceived them to have had as tools. A lot of situations would have required like thousands or hundreds of years of continual observation to map the preciseness that they had mapped the stars, which is integral to knowing that this 3D construct is objective, at least to us, and that there are parameters, and those parameters are not man-made. And we go on and journey within with Opening the Doors to the Invisible Self, which was a lecture by Manly P. Hall, if I'm not mistaken. This video offers an accurate assessment of how to consciously evolve humanity and the individual, so you can see the theme as a progression. Then it moves to the natural method. And I can either stop this here now or continue. Do I have any soap to advertise, Andy? Wow. We'll go through the natural section because I think it is good to be tied to the rest of what we've already discussed. Natural, adjective, 1, existing in or caused by nature, not made or caused by humankind. Human beings of all levels of consciousness, like most animals, are very aware of the basic components and effects of nature. However, these very same humans have fallen victim to the deepest rooted forms of mind control. Through generational indoctrination and religious devotion to imaginary concepts, many people have lost or never had a grasp on which things in life are natural and which are man-made. Mental constructs such as money, authority vested in strangers, and mob rule have been drilled into the social fabric and mental makeup of most people. Quote, money makes the world go round. Quote, they should have complied. And quote, vote for the lesser of two evils are all prime examples of the real world effects of this kind of quote thinking. I wrote all this, by the way. Everything you've heard so far that isn't in quotes. Absolute belief in these made-up manipulative tools of control are the bedrock of nearly every problem we see in the world, from poor health to civil unrest. Much debate and endless heated arguments have occurred in favor of or against what kind of bars or what color the bars of the prison cell should be, with almost no talk of the prison or how to escape it. The reason is that most people do not want to accept that they are a prisoner of belief in false concepts, be it theirs or in the aggregate. They do not want to accept that they were dumb enough to believe the lie in the first place, but have a vested interest in maintaining it. The few who emerge from the cesspool of cerebral oblivion to question the prison are aggressively destroyed. So try to understand that seeking and obtaining this knowledge carries its dangers and benefits, but nothing is more dangerous or beneficial to you than applying what you learn here. The danger comes from being aware of and able to see the illusions for what they are. Dangerous because you will be armed with the knowledge of self that will prevent you from accepting scraps from thieves. Dangerous because you will be compelled to stand up for yourself and others. The keepers of slavery are quick to anger and violence when they experience what they perceive as an attack on their self-imposed title of good person. The agents of tyranny, who actually do the day-to-day maintenance of the illusion called society, experience a very tangible sense of perceived power from their social status. Not licking the boots of a police officer is dangerous. Standing up to overseers is dangerous but necessary. Even the common man with no comprehension of the nature and cause of the current state of reality, and with his many false beliefs, are capable of ending your life in defense of those beliefs. Those who are so low in awareness as to serve evil are not cognizant of how false, incorrect, immoral, and unnatural their behavior is. The small percent that do know their behavior is wrong are what's known as a psychopath. The vast majority are products of their environment, the true environment. Nature has been hijacked and held hostage for nearly the entire 20th century. The concepts of bottled water, for instance, corporations owning residential homes, and borders are all perfect examples of nature being held hostage. The total eradication of food-bearing plants and trees from communities is a clear indication that there is an ongoing assault on what appears natural to the human mind. Countries and borders seem like a natural extension of the concept of a home to most people. Trash seems like a, quote, natural and logical result of a product's packaging to most people. Someone actually said that. Police and prisons seem like the natural response to violence and injustice in humanity. However, all of these modes of operation are invalid and empirically false. There are no such things as countries. Therefore, all borders are tyranny. No opinion can change that. No perspective can change that. Trash is the first abomination in a universe that wastes nothing. Police and prisons do not stop violence or injustice, but merely clean up afterwards with no regard for the causal factors, which ironically is the system they depend on, and their false beliefs. The master plan of the owners of the earth is to sedate the entire population into passive, mindless, endless illusion until finally their way of life is life, and no one will be able to tell the difference. Most people won't know what a tree was or that tigers roam the earth in the jungle. Of course, there's a bunch of movies that talk about this. Like, this is like a whole market. There's a whole genre of movies that talk about this. The Lorax is a prime example for kids, a kiddie example. Mad Max is another example from an adult perspective. They will only know what they are programmed to know, and at that point, there is no point in humanity continuing, and we are fast approaching that eventuality. What this course of thought and way of being is by comparison to what is propagated to the commoner. I saw an insect. It's a fly. I'm going to leave him alone for now. What this course of thought and way of being is by comparison to what is propagated to the commoner is what the starship is to the rowboat. As the illusion grows more solidified with more and more content, it becomes more and more difficult to break free from its hold, even when you are a focused seer. The owners of the earth and man want not only to be gods, but to be worshipped as gods. Most of our advances as a civilization destroy or imitate nature. Man offers a substitute for natural suffering, which is manufactured suffering. Manufactured suffering is seemingly predictable, while natural suffering is seemingly random. Manufactured suffering offers some relief in the presumption of appeal. You can appeal to a court, but you cannot appeal to cancer. You can file a form to reverse a process of institutions, but you cannot file a form to redirect a tornado. I'm going to read that again because it's one of my favorite sentences and I butchered it. You can appeal to a court, but you cannot appeal to cancer. You can file a form to reverse a process of institutions, but you cannot file a form to redirect a tornado. The coddled masses have grown to appreciate the warm lies over the cold truth. Having to go through the trouble of showing up to court to pay a parking ticket is seemingly more appealing than having to go through the trouble of ending a system that criminalizes existence, namely traveling in that example. We can work on and agree on social responsibilities, but none of them will include giving up the product of one's labor, their freedom, or their life for them or their property being somewhere in public for too long. The presumption to justify violence against peaceful people for merely existing is the antithesis to freedom. The complete opposite. Let me read that again. The presumption to justify violence against peaceful people for merely existing is the antithesis of freedom. It is more natural to rebel against an unjust system than it is to comply with its false edicts and immoral demands. Nothing about the way colonized people live on this planet is natural, but because the motions of eating, sleeping, and engaging in relationships still occur, if even haphazardly, they assume they are living in a natural manner. On the contrary, even a basic investigation into the diet, habits, institutions, traditions, laws, customs, compromises, and socioeconomic structures of most so-called civilized societies are unsustainable, wasteful, and immoral, hence unnatural. Starting from the beginning, Western civilization does everything wrong. The Western way of birthing children is harmful, impersonal, and insulting to logic. The way all cultures indoctrinate superstition and a false sense of respect for traditions is unnatural. Conforming to ways, modes, methods, and models of living that do not serve one, all, or any is unnatural. Paying taxes is not natural. Being forced to do anything against your will as a sovereign adult of any age of reason is not natural. Traffic stops are not natural or necessary. The seasonal inflation of currency is yet another misunderstood, completely unnatural phenomenon. Simply slapping the label of legal does not mean it is natural or moral. Likewise, simply slapping the label of illegal does not make something real or immoral. There is no such thing as illegal immigration. Ask a goose, ask a wildebeest, or a humpback, or a sea turtle, if any form of immigration can be unlawful in nature. However, therein lies another illusion. There is no such thing as illegal. Immorally obtaining natural necessary resources and then withholding them is immoral, unjust, and unnatural. So governments cannot help you with peace and justice and freedom. They are the complete, their existence is antithetical to nature, to justice, to morality. Animals prey on each other all the time, but none are so disconnected from nature as to withhold its prey's resources from birth to death. Licenses and permits are permissions to exercise a freedom or right and has been rendered and expressed as not rights but rather privileges and thus not natural. The withholding of that which the licenses and permits are required for are so unnecessary that there are large industries in place to capitalize on people not having them. Licenses and permits are clear signs of tyranny and socio-economic stagnation. Authority vested in strangers, groups, organizations, corporations, and governments is imaginary and an extremely bad idea. The concepts of natural, inherent rights and laws have been drained of their meaning to the point where most people falsely believe that rights, freedom, and laws are man-made rather than natural. Because of this understanding of nature, rights and laws have been made low and are now seen as temporary agreements rather than forces of nature. The scientific method is natural. Humanity's ego has grown so out of control that not only does it want credit for creating the scientific method, a small group has claimed credit for it. Observation of one's environment and then asking a question personally or socially is a natural process of rational thought and discovery. Researching the topic before jumping to conclusions is a natural process of efficiency. See what the previous path holds before attempting to trailblaze. Forming a hypothesis based on what you learned simply from the act of asking the question, the research you are still doing, is natural. Experimenting is natural. And finally, forming conclusions based on what you learned in the process of using the scientific method of truth discovery is natural. All sentient beings use the scientific method. All advanced civilizations have mastered the scientific method in the sense that they have learned to harmonize with it. Sadly, science has been literally weaponized and commoditized to the point that most people do not see the difference between science and what we are calling science with the cash sign as the S, or science for or by way of money. Scientists and authorities, the former is the default mechanism for thinking beings to think. The latter is the perversion of the former, leading people into what to think, not how to think, to trust the scientists rather than to attempt to understand the science of. Science, with the cash symbol, has given birth to scientism, with the cash symbol, a religion decimating Christianity in size and jurisdictions. It is impressive to watch as people blindly buy the criminals' drugs simply because the criminals have bought scientists who will affirm whatever their employers desire or be unemployed. It is logically fallacious to presume that one is more qualified across general scientific disciplines because they belong to a specific scientific discipline. Aside from that, it is unwise to take anything from a tyrannical government besides their lives and their lands. This includes taking their advice or suggestions with regard to your health and strategies. Moving forward, it is incumbent upon the neophyte to attempt to observe the many ways the concept of natural is purposefully obfuscated and even altered in common society. Now that we have granted awareness into some ways that we are coerced into accepting tyranny as, quote, the way things are, we are better able to see how false that lie is. Things are this way because man has made them this way. If it is possible for man to reverse his course before it is too late, it will be done by way of applied logic, the scientific method, the trivium, a deep understanding of nature and her laws. Then it goes into the natural method, the scientific method. And this is the elementary, and it goes on and on. One of the things I want to hint at while we have time is abominations. A lot of people profess that some people's lifestyles and how they engage with other consenting adults is an abomination, when the universe has clearly shown, if you observe, that the number one primary, if those things are abominations, they pale in comparison to what we call trash. Trash, or waste, is something the universe does not do. The creator, if there is a personified creator of the universe, went through painstaking lengths to show that this is worst case scenario. This is as bad as it's going to get. I guess it's a reflection. Waste is a reflection of your distance from your God. And people don't even realize or relate that. People who largely ascribe to certain denominations could give a fuck about trash. But there it is. Trash is the logical, most abominable thing that could ever exist. Waste in nature. It's disrespectful. It's sacrilegious. It is beneficial to assess abominations to nature in the apophatic format, meaning to examine what a thing is by familiarizing ourselves with all that that thing is not. Trash has been declared by some to be a naturally occurring phenomenon. Packaging requires a protective covering to secure products from the elements and thieves, right? So trash is the natural effect of humanity packaging products. Somebody told me that. Nature and reality does not show a single sign of waste anywhere in the cosmos. In a universe that does not waste, trash is the first abomination. Aside from trash as natural being a ridiculous train of thought, the components of trash are not even natural. The harmful physical manifestations of trash in the form of plastics and other man-made materials, curbed for a moment, restricting access to resources based on arbitrary value exchange, is inherently unnatural. The predation of natural resources for the sole purpose of arbitrary value exchange is unnatural and hence an abomination. This is why stealing to avoid starving is scarcely viewed as stealing at all. The unnecessary arbitrary control of natural resources by humanity is unnatural, so calling the physical effects of waste natural is inherently false. Waste is simply mismanaged resources. Willful ignorance is unnatural. Denying reality is a common psychological defense mechanism displayed in humans. However, the inability to accept the presence of common social realities is unnatural. The inevitable outcome of ignoring socioeconomic realities is the equivalent of ignoring dangerous or hazardous environmental realities. Furthermore, ignoring how these realities directly affect the individual and society are clear signs of someone under extraordinary mind control. Sadly, this is the condition of the average human being. Mind control without consent is unnatural. The only form of mind that should inhabit anybody is the one of the individual and the infinite mind of creation. No human is subject to the will of another. No human mind is legitimately available for ownership without that mind being fully aware and given of its own free will. Like a contract, the signer has to be reasonably able to comprehend what they are signing up for the contract to be valid and binding. In almost every instance, consensual mind control circumstances is an impossibility. The healthy knowing mind is unable to willingly submit to mind control. The knowing mind does not require external control or validation. Nothing valid can come from external mind control, and no matter how seemingly positive some social advancements may be, no advance has been made that is not grounded in internal mind control. Coercion is mind control. Lying is mind control because it eliminates a person's ability to be aware of the truth and reality of a situation that directly affects both parties, namely them. Anyone who says any of the following is under mind control. Quote, "This is the way it's always been. Who are we to change things? Money makes the world go round. Respect authority. You have a problem with authority. We don't have enough money for that. The earth is already overpopulated. The government wouldn't lie to us. It's classified for a reason. You think you know better than the scientists? I've never seen or heard of that, so it doesn't exist. All we have to do is vote for insert here. You're weird. It's the politicians' corporations' fault. I don't care about politics." Or, in other words, any issues that affect them, others, in the world. And for good measure, anyone that believes in any concept or form of money past the developmental need for money, authority vested in strangers, and or religion without responsibility, the responsibility to truly know one's faith, and the responsibility to not force that faith on others, are under mind control. Every single person that claims or identifies as, quote, I am a insert political affiliation here, is under mind control, save for the anarchists, which I am incorrect about that, because an anarchist is under mind control if they identify as an anarchist, because it is merely a reaction to the existence of rulers, which doesn't define them at all. I am a no rulers. That doesn't make any sense. It must be stated that the anarchist is under mind control in the way that an innocent prisoner is to some extent mind controlled by the prison, but it's actually a little bit deeper than that, as I just said. And I'm only speaking fast because I'm about to go to sleep, and I've gotten through much of the most important parts of the elementary featured in the Activism University, but as you can see, it goes on and on and on, and it actually is. This isn't just information for the sake of information. The things that are most important to us and affect us the most, this train of thought is meant to describe it. The exercise of government is unnatural, while having a vote is a product. You see, it is meant to describe what the fuck on earth is happening here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this live in the Activism University. You should go back and check out the hierarchy of activism. Please check out our plant-based soap shop, which features some of our handcrafted all-natural soap. And please check out our free seeds section, which features free books. Just check out EvolvingSeeds.com. We really are working very hard and have worked very hard for a very long time to present solutions to the world, and these solutions are bona fide. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. Please be safe out there.